All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick, who continues his travels around the United States of America. Today we're going to talk US Open. We're going to talk NL Cy Young, which I think has the biggest edge in an awards market for a while. And then we will talk three different NFL games. But let's start off with the US Open, Drew. There's been some happenings since we last chatted on Bet the Edge. Iga Swiatek, she is gone. Ons Jabeur, our dear friend, also departed, though that one felt like only a matter of time. And now we have Coco Gauff as a plus 150 favorite to win the US Open. Arena Sabalenka's plus 190, and they are the two favorites by margin. So the way I want to approach this is, do you think it's right that Gauff is favored over Sabalenka, who I know has to play an extra match, which is minus 500 to beat our girl Xinwen Zhang? And Sabalenka's dropped, no one's gotten past 3 games in a set against her yet, while Gauff has dropped 3 sets herself. Do you agree that Gauff should be the favorite here?
I can't make her plus 150. As much as I would love to see her break through here. It would be awesome for the sport of tennis. It would be great for American women tennis to have a U.S. Open champion. But Sabalenka is the player to beat. I have a little bit of hope that Zheng Xinwen can challenge. But boy, oh boy, Sabalenka, when she has been on, she is, every single match is on her racket. Her tendency to airmail certain portions of matches, her tendency to let the double faults trickle in and give away free points is still kind of in the back of my head. Is that going to rear its ugly head in the semifinals if she gets past Zheng Xinwen? The problem is that the third quarter winner, who is likely going to be Marketa Vondrousova or Madison Keys, both of those women are a little bit questionable right now in terms of just medical, just physical fitness and being 100% right for that semifinal. So the stage of elimination where Sabalenka tends to choke it up, which is the semifinals, all of a sudden looks a lot easier than what we were thinking a week ago. So I would still think that she should be the player to beat in this tournament. Coco Gauff and Arina Sabalenka in particular, that head-to-head, if that is the final, I would expect Sabalenka to be in the minus 150 range. It is a difficult match to price because there's not a lot of recent history between the two. The only time that they've played this year was, I believe, in Indian Wells, and Sabalenka dispatched Coco Gauff without really lifting a finger. I want to say it was like 6-4, 6-0, and I remember that was kind of the nadir of Coco Gauff's 2023, where you were literally like, man, what is happening? Why can she not capture any of the good form we've seen from her as she was kind of building to this level of player? And you go back further in history, and Coco has some decent head-to-head wins against her, but most of them were in slower conditions, clay, and it is playing slow out there. I think realistically, it's going to be a very even match, and I would expect Sabalenka to be a decent favorite in the final if that's what we ultimately get. There's not much to fear, in my opinion, of a semifinal against either Mukova. I mean, it's probably going to be Mukova. We don't know that. We're recording this prior to that second semifinal being played. Mukova's taking on Sorana Cirstea, and Cirstea is a fine player, but not at Mukova's level. I would expect Mukova gets to the semifinal, and we just saw a preview of that match. Gauff dispatched Mukova in straight sets in the Cincinnati final and was clearly the better player at that point. So I would say that Gauff really is you're only kind of fearing the worst case scenario of Sabalenka running into Sabalenka in a final and her being in form to the tune of being able to blow Coco off the court with her power. Today was a pretty impressive performance against Ostapenko, but to me that felt more like Ostapenko airmailing it than Coco Gauff really kind of reaching her absolute peak of her powers. So basically I'm at the point where I think it is enjoy the moment, enjoy the run for Coco Gauff. If she ultimately wins, tremendous, but I think I'm probably going to be against her along the way, at least in the final.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been kind of billed as, Coco Gauff's tournament. She came in with such incredible form. Now, all of a sudden, she's in a semi-final and she will be favored in that semi, and she's the favorite to win the tournament right now. But at the same time, she hasn't been that impressive, I don't think, on the way here. She was on the ropes in round 1 in a match she really shouldn't have been. And then she's dropped sets as well to players like Mertens and Wozniacki. And these are matches where you'd hope that she would be, taking care of business in the way that Arena Sabalenka has. And so as I'm looking now, Sabalenka's plus 230 on the exchange to win this tournament. I don't understand that at all. If you just multiply money lines, and I think that Vondrousova, her injury has kind of, no one really knows how to price that, but I mean, she's withdrawing from the doubles tournament with like tears in her eyes, and she didn't look right at all. And so if she was fully fit, it would become a bit more interesting. But I mean, Sabalenka, the way that she's playing at the moment, I know she has the double faults thing. She always has the double faults thing, and that has reared its head a little bit in this tournament. But at the same time, if you just win every point where you get a serve in, then it doesn't really matter if you double fault a lot, as she does. So yeah, I think that she is a bet. If you can hunt around and find anything north of plus 200, then I think she is a play. None of these long shots are interesting to me.
No.
All Zhang, who we love, I mean, 12-1. That's way too low.
Yeah,
it should be twice that price. Just given that she's got to go through Sabalenka, and then outside of that, like Madison Keys, I've kind of wanted to believe in Madison Keys a couple of times, but certainly can't get there. Anything else on the women's side before we jump to the men's?
I'll just point out that one of the reasons you can't get there with Keys is because we just saw Sabalenka dispatch Keys without lifting a finger at Wimbledon. That was not a competitive match. And in general, she does not match up well against Sabalenka. Again, I got to see Sabalenka in person at the US Open, and her physical powers are unbelievable. She is the player to beat when she is on. It's literally going to take her kind of opening the door for someone else. And at price, I don't think you can really make the case for anyone in this tournament. So mostly just interested to see how the final is going to be priced. I would like to see Sabalenka Goff just for the entertainment factor. It would be good. And if you're going to give me Sabalenka anything under minus 150, I'm probably going to be on the Belarusian.
Yep, I like it. Okay, let's go to the men's side where as we're recording, Novak Djokovic has just dispatched of Taylor Fritz, 1-4-4. It's been very smooth sailing for Novak since he dropped those 2 sets to Laszlo Gire. And Novak was minus 135 in the market live, down 2 sets to nothing, which just shows you the market's respect for Novak. And he certainly repaid it. Gire won 5 games after that in the final 3 sets. So pretty smooth from Novak. Meanwhile, Carlos Alcaraz, who, I'm not sure if he caught a break or not. I mean, the market was treating Sinner as the more difficult opponent than Zverev, given that Sinner closed a decent favorite, but he is done now. And it will be likely a Zverev-Medvedev path to the final for Alcaraz. Has anything really changed your handicap of the men's side?
Not really, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet on Zverev to beat Alcaraz, even though it's kind of set up exactly like we talked about it, where you got a price against Sinner and you're getting a big price against Alcaraz to the tune of a better two-way parlay than his future price before the tournament. Alcaraz has been good. I would say that there's nothing that I've seen from him that has told me he is really solving this score, or like really best of 5. He's just been the better player and really hasn't let his, just really hasn't let up. It's not common to see a player of his quality like dropping sets, but in Canada and in Cincinnati, Alcaraz really. Particularly in Cincinnati, he kind of made a mess of a lot of his warm-up matches there. He was giving away sets he had no business giving away, and he has cleaned a lot of that up. So he's spending less time on court, and in general, with Zverev playing, a 5-hour marathon deep into the night last night, I think the order of play does kind of come into kind of matters for tomorrow. So they are going to be the last match on in the night session on Arthur Ashe, which I think slightly favors Zverev, gives him the opportunity to kind of stay in the same time window where he was performing against Sinner. And so I'm leaning Zverev in this one. I don't have a strong conviction. I can tell you that their match that was contested was it not this previous French Open, but the prior French Open where Zverev beat him in 4. Zverev was the better player that day. And he, in the subsequent match, hurt his ankle, was kind of off tour for, long enough that people forgot the level he got to, where he almost defeated Djokovic in the semifinals here. Was, at least I thought, giving Rafa Nadal a true test in that French Open prior to the injury. So Zverev has a ceiling that I think people are a little kind of hesitant to acknowledge and recognize. And, certainly getting him in, the 4-to-1-ish range for this particular head-to-head, I think is value. So not my favorite play of the whole tournament. That was absolutely today, where I was chasing with every dollar that I had, trying to get Coco Gauff home over a beleaguered Ostapenko. But I do think that Alcaraz Zverev is going to be a very, very close match. Your point about then going through Medvedev, I think, is valid as well, because Medvedev is a big brother picking on the little brother in Andrei Rublev, the way I look at their head-to-head results. And I would expect Medvedev is also going to be a really tough test. So just the idea of Alcaraz getting tested by Zverev, tested by Medvedev, and then potentially facing a relatively fresh Djokovic, that's not good news for Alcaraz, no matter how you want to slice it. And it's good news for Djokovic, which is really all that I care about at this point in the futures market. Not to say that I need him to get this, title home, but I would love it. And I think right now, at least, the draw is pretty clearly stacked in his favor.
Yeah, agreed. And I'd say as well that there is no point backing Zverev to win the tournament at 14-1, given that just the money line price of, like, right now he's in the plus 370, creeping up to plus 400 range against Alcaraz, and he would be, presumably even longer than that in a final against Novak. And Novak is a heavy favorite to reach that final. And that's not even say you'd probably have to go through Medvedev as well, which is no cakewalk. So yeah, if you do like Zverev, better off just playing the money line. All right, let's get to National League Cy Young. A lot of the markets we talk about, sometimes, we have to couch our opinions, speak in, just address the uncertainty in markets. There's no uncertainty here. There is a price in this market which is just blatantly incorrect. And that's Justin Steele at plus 300 to win NL Cy Young. This is just wrong, Drew. I am 100% convinced that this is just completely wrong. There is no reason that Blake Snell should be minus 225 and Justin Steele plus 300. We'll talk about Spencer Strider because he's an interesting one. But everyone else in this market outside of those three guys is just completely done. Zach Gallen is done. He has no case. He has no pathway to a case outside of, throwing 3 no-hitters in a row. Which is obviously not going to happen. Logan Webb, Zach Wheeler, I think, would have been an interesting case if Snell and Steele hadn't separated themselves so much in ERA, but I think that he is probably now done after he gave up that 3-run bomb to Willy Adames in his last start. So the thing to note with this award is that it is an ERA award, and people have not shown any ability to get away from ERA. Your past 12 winners of Cy Young have all been top 2 in ERA. The biggest ERA to win in that time was Robbie Ray, who had a 2.84 ERA, but he also led the league in strikeouts and whip, and it was just a weak season overall in AL Cy Young. And so right now, Snell is at 2.50, Steele is at 2.55, and then there's no one else under 3. So the race starts with those two. And so you talk about Steele and Snell head-to-head. So the gap in ERA is basically immaterial now. It's 2.50 to 2.55. The peripherals favor Steele. Snell has a decent edge, or a pretty big edge, in strikeouts. But outside of that, Steele has got him in whip. He's got him in wins. He's got him in Fangraphs WAR. He's got him in FIP, adjusted ERA+. The peripherals battle goes in Steele's favor. And the big knock on Steele was 2 things. One was workload, in that he had just less innings pitched than the other contenders. That's not the case anymore. Not after he's thrown 14 innings the past 2 games, where now he's at 152 innings pitched, Snell's at 155, Strider's at 159. That's nothing. It's not going to factor in. The other issue was that I think people just didn't know who Justin Steele was, and they didn't view him as this dominant elite ace starter. And probably was thought in the same breath as guys like, I don't know, like Merrill Kelly and Alex Cobb, who are solid starters, but, not bona fide aces. That's gone as well now. His past 2 starts where he went head-to-head in the thick of a playoff race against Corbin Burns and Logan Webb, 2 elite aces, Cy Young contenders in their own right for much of the season. All Steele did was throw 14 scoreless innings with 20 strikeouts, won both games, and vaulted the Cubs firmly into playoff positioning. And so when you look at Steele versus Snell, I just think that team success has to play in, and the fact that Steele is pitching in these meaningful games. Steele is pitching to win the division and to make the playoffs. Snell is pitching to win Cy Young, and that's about it. Like, these games are irrelevant for the Padres now. They're a complete disaster. The Cubs are one of the best stories of the season. So I think that just has to matter. And for that reason, I think Snell should be a dog to Steele just in that head-to-head market. And he's minus 225 and Steele's plus 300. Does that make any sense to you, Drew?
Yeah, I think your case is quite strong. So the first time you mentioned Justin Steele, I just kind of ignored you. The second time you mentioned him, I was like, I should really look at what team he plays for. The third time, I was like, all right, I got to dig in here because you were making such a strong case. He's a Chicago Cub, if you didn't already know that. But no, I mean, like, if it was not for sort of the name brand kind of lack of pedigree or just the lack of an anchor to that this guy was ever really in consideration, then I think you see these prices would be flip-flopped. And that's not to say that Snell has it necessarily, but people have just thought enough about Snell to kind of decide for themselves that yes, he's in the race, and Steele is kind of coming on right now as a relative unknown or a surprise. But the people who vote on these awards, they know he's a Cub. They know he's an absolute ace. They know exactly all the stuff you're listing out. And so the market being a little bit slow to recognize all that is probably just because there's a lot of other stuff to bet on, Jay. There's a lot of football. I'm not sure if you know this, but NFL starts this week. College football started last weekend. The US Open right now has my accounts pretty flush. So no, it's there's just so much going on. This is falling through the cracks, and you want to correct the market. I think you have every right to do it, and I think you're probably going to make a lot of money on this.
Yep, it's going to be Justin Steele. Add to the Mookie Betts crusade. This is Steele and Betts show now. The other thing, just lastly, I'll say on Steele, this is not a flash in the pan. He's legitimately good. His past 32 starts dates back to the last 2 months of last season. He's got a 2.25 ERA. Like, he's a legit ace. He is a star. Strider is the weird one in this market where, like, he is going to have amazing peripheral stats. He's going to have 300 strikeouts. He might have 20 wins, lead the league in WHIP, but he's got a 3.56 ERA at the moment. And that's unelectable. If he gets it down into the 3.10s, then maybe, but he's very long to be able to do that. And he's still probably a dog at that point because one of Steele or Snell is going to be in the mid-twos. So I think Strider is alive. I think he's the third other guy who can win, but at market price right now, it's just poison. So I think Steele should be even money to win this award. And if I had to pick, I would take Steele over the field. And I've bet with that mentality. So Justin Steele, 4 starts to go, my friend. You can get this home. All right, before we go from Justin Steele to Kenny Pickett, it's a double dip of Sunday Night Football this week. Drew, the season kicks off Thursday, September 7th, when Patrick Mahomes and the Super Bowl champion Chiefs host the Lions, followed by Dak Prescott and the Cowboys taking on Saquon Barkley and the Giants on Sunday. Coverage of both games starts at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. All right, I'm sure we'll talk more about that Chiefs game as we get a bit more clarity on Travis Kelce, which has shaken the market up. All right, 49ers are 2.5-point favorites at Pittsburgh. The market opened Niners -3. It's been trending towards the Steelers, total of 41 at the moment. And to me, this is maybe the most compelling week 1 game because I don't really know what to expect from the Steelers. I think they are probably higher variance than one might expect from Pittsburgh Steelers team that in the past couple of years has kind of just been the definition of a 500 squad. But now I think with Kenny Pickett in year 2, with George Pickens in year 2, with an offensive line that should be better, with TJ Watt back fully in the fold, with a defense that could be elite and an offense which could be decent, all of a sudden this team I think has real upside. And then on the other side, you've got a Niners team that is gone all in, chips all in with Brock Purdy coming off the elbow injury. Sneakily doesn't really have that much of an offensive line outside of Trent Williams, and also real uncertainty over Nick Bosa and his status. So what do you make of this game?
I mean, you just made the handicap right there. I think the Steelers should be a pick 'em. I think plus 120 on the money line is a bet. I've made that bet. I have a lot of exposure to the Steelers playing better than 500 football, Jay, and because that's Steeler football isn't 500 football. It's just better than 500 football. But in seriousness, they're fully healthy. There's no questions really about roles, responsibilities on this team whatsoever. Everything I've seen, read, heard about Pickett in the preseason indicates to me a guy who's making a year 2 step forward. The only thing that gives me any pause about Steelers is the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, has a tendency to be somewhat predictable in his play calling. But I am holding out hope, and I have staked real US dollars on the idea that Canada has learned coming down the stretch last year how to better use the tools that are available at his disposal. Less predictable, second and long run Najee Harris into a cloud of dust type of stuff. I would expect that the urgency is obviously a lot more important here for the Steelers than the Niners. The Niners are, in my opinion at least, and I think they kind of know this, they are such a favorite within division that if they use the beginning portion of the season like a little bit of an extended preseason, I won't be surprised. The fact that Nick Bosa is not there matters. Nick Bosa absolutely moves the needle, and as of the time of this recording, I am not expecting him to play in this game. There are questions exactly like you asked about Brock Purdy. What is he going to look like coming off of the surgery? What is Brock Purdy going to look like under duress because this offensive line is at a disadvantage against the pass rush for the Steelers? So can that be enough to kind of sway the balance in favor of Pittsburgh at home in their home opener? Absolutely, in my opinion. And I think the fact that you have a diverse set of weapons with 2 outstanding wide receivers and a very, very serviceable tight end, to me, is going to put pressure on the weaknesses of the San Francisco defense, which is their cornerback room. Niners are not coming in sharp, focused, and healthy and ready to really kick their campaign off in sincerity. They're going to be much better team to bet on, to back, to believe in my opinion, once we get into the November, December, January timeframe. Kenny Pickett, Brock Purdy's got a full couple of months of rehab starts under his belt, Nick Bosa presumably is back in the fold. So, a lot of warning signs here with this Niners team to start the season, and the fact that we have a team that is kind of clearly trending down with one that is trending up in a week 1 opportunity with a team that is trending up at home as plus money line on underdog. That spells fantastic look. So Steelers money line was one of the first bets I made for week 1, and I'm going to go down swinging with this team one way or the other. I just hope Matt Canada doesn't stab me in the back.
Yeah, indeed. Well, firstly, I'm glad that you wagered real US dollars on this as opposed to Japanese yen or Bolivianos.
I thought you were going to go like imaginary internet money. No, real US dollars, not imaginary internet money.
Bolivianos, by the way, which often aren't real, as I found out the hard way on my travels through La Paz in a different lifetime. Es falso, mi amigo. I heard that a lot of time. There is a chance that the Steelers offense could be falso as well if Matt Canada doesn't run the real plays. But I think they're one of the most compelling teams just because if Kenny Pickett is the 13th best quarterback in football this year, which is, I think, very much within the realms of possibility, then they might be the best team in the best division in football, just about. Like, they certainly have that upside, particularly with Burrow with his calf, which seems like it will be okay, but he's still, Zach Taylor's still calling him day to day, which I think is just sugarcoating, and he'll be fine. But again, that's an injury that has a high risk of reoccurrence. And then the Ravens, Mark Andrews, who wasn't healthy all the back end of last year, is already missing practice. And if he's not right, then all of a sudden I think the ceiling of that offense falls a decent chunk. So yeah, I'm with you, all in Steelers. And as we've talked about, the best way to bet the Steelers is Mike Tomlin, Coach of the Year. All right, another couple of Coach of the Year candidates are in Chicago this weekend for Packers at Bears. The Bears are 1-point favorites. This line has been moving aggressively towards the Packers. I mean, it opened Bears 2.5, going from 2.5 to 1 isn't a massive leap given that you're not going through a key number, but still has been shifting towards Green Bay. The total is 43. What are you expecting from this one?
Yeah, the feels like a fever dream that the Packers were at one point a juicy three in the market, because it has been one way Packers, and I think most of the most of the market sentiment here is just reflecting optimism about this very, very young offense. And the fact that they've put together tape in the preseason that shows that they know what they're doing. And if this is a good offense combined with what is a very, very low bar to clear, which is the best defense in the NFC North, then the Packers are a bet on, particularly to start the season. I think a million years ago, you and I did a show with Chris Sims and basically said, hey, look, Packers can absolutely get out. If they win a couple coin flips early, this is a team that, you could see 5-0 leading the NFC North. And, it's going to be, there's going to be a pretty aggressive market adjustment for this, that team and how they're priced. We're already seeing it. They've already come up a point or two in market rating, because this is not like people losing faith in the Bears, although I don't know whoever really had faith in the Bears other than Bears fans. But I look at this as a pretty clear matchup where it's going to be good. It's going to be good weather. They do tend to grow the grass a little long in Chicago early in the season, which does slow some of the skill position players down. So that has kept me off of an over here to a degree. But I think that basically every NFC North game is going to be first to 30. And I do like a couple of the matchups that the Packers are bringing into this one against the Bears defense that I think is pretty undermanned. So can Justin Fields snap what has been a relatively unimpressive stretch of passing? It's possible, but I think with Jair Alexander on the field, I at least have a little bit more modicum of hope that the Packers defense can do their job. I look at this Packers defense as one that is going to really struggle when they're up against heavy personnel, which they are week 2 against Atlanta, because Joe Woods likes to run light boxes. He likes to be a nickel and dime pretty aggressively, and that's going to make it tough for Fields to get it done through the air here. And that said, a couple injuries on the offensive line for the Bears, a little bit of shuffling, not the starter we expected at center, not the starter we expected at left guard here. So there's enough uncertainty swirling around Chicago that I think this is Packers or pass. And it's tough to kind of get over. You've missed the best of the price here by a long shot, but the fact that they're still plus money, on the money line, if you shop around, I think is a fair play, because they are the better team. At least they have the best unit on the field, which is probably Packers defense.
Yeah, it's crazy that the Packers have the best defense in the NFC North, because the defense, it's okay. I don't think it's great, though. I think that once Rashawn Gary is fully up and running, it'll be a much better unit overall. But I guess they are the best defense in the NFC North just by default. Gary looks like he'll be on a pitch count week 1, but he will be out there. I think with the Bears, it's all just gone a little bit too far. I think a lot of people have pitched the idea that Justin Fields is this year's Jalen Hurts MVP candidate, the guy who's in the 30, 40 to 1 range, who can make a run like Lamar Jackson did in 2019, like Mahomes did in 2018, like Hurts did last year. But Fields is coming from so far back as a passer, where, he averaged 149 passing yards per game last year. It's absolutely tiny. And a lot of his success was built on these 65-yard runs in chaos, which is not the most sustainable strength to replicate going into this season. And when you combine that with the issues on the offensive line, I do think the Packers are the play here, if any. All right, before we get to Eagles-Pats, a reminder, the NFL season starts this week, which means drafts are happening right now. Get the Roto World Football Draft Guide, which includes all the rankings, player profiles, and projections you need to win your league this year. Go to NBCsports.com/draft guide to get your draft guide now, and use code CHAMP23 to save 20% off and receive a $10 Fanatics All right, Eagles-Pats. Eagles are 4-point favorites in New England. The total is 45. I feel like the Patriots are a team that we haven't really talked about that much. I don't think it's a team that anyone's really talked about that much. They are kind of like what the Steelers were last year, where it seems like a fairly low ceiling team that's going to be around 500, that type of range. Do you think there's any more upside for the Pats? The people are missing, or is this a team that is justifiably 4-point dogs at home in week 1?
So I played the Pats at +4 here, and it's probably the lowest confidence side on my card because I think this offense might stink. But I do think that the defense you're looking at trotting out here for Belichick is going to be top 5. Their numbers may not look like it because they're, the strength of opponent over the balance of this season for the Patriots is absurdly tough. And so you're going to potentially get opportunities to back the Pats plus the points a lot, I think, this season, as they may be a team that in a neutral setting should be power rated like borderline top 12. But I think could maybe only win 5 games. That said, +4, being on the right side of 3, I think is important here. I think this is going to come down to field position, special teams, and maybe even the Eagles having to put together a comeback. I do downgrade the Eagles defense from last season pretty substantially, not because of the loss of the coordinator necessarily, but some of the personnel that they are shuffling in and out here matters. And I think that it's going to be a little bit tricky for, the Eagles to just pick right up and, be a dominant defense when you have a number of new guys who have to figure out their roles, responsibilities, and you have a Patriots team that's a little bit of an unknown. Like, I'm not exactly sure what film you're looking at if you're, Sean Desai and the Eagles, defensive rooms this week preparing for this game. And I would expect the Patriots, probably with some of the injuries to their offensive line, are going to lean pretty heavily on the running game here. I don't think they're going to put Mac Jones out there to get beat up and really kind of try to beat his confidence down this early in the season. I think they're going to give him a lot of easy, low hanging fruit. They're going to maybe take a couple of shots deep down the field. He's got a beautiful, just sort of drop in the bucket, 25, 30-yard pass in his arsenal. I would expect they probably drop a couple of plays to try to use that tool. But I think ultimately it's going to be, a game that's decided by field goals here. Because of the strength of the Patriots defense. I think the Eagles are one of the best offenses in the NFL. I think over the balance of the season, this is a team that's going to score 30 points pretty regularly, but I think they're coming out of the gate slow, in part because they didn't play many of their starters in the preseason, and we don't really know what we're going to get in the absence of Shane Steichen in terms of an awesome offensive philosophy. Combine that with the fact that just the Patriots defense is just flat out good. We don't, like, if you think really, really hard, how many really good defenses did the Eagles play last year? They played the Niners in the NFC Championship game where they underperformed a little bit in the first half of that one. But they were not tested much in terms of playing some of the elite defenses in the NFL. And now they actually have to play one. So I think this is going to be a 20-17 type of game, 23-20 type of game. My median expectation is the Eagles win this one by 3. And so for all those reasons, I took the +4.
Yep, I like that. I think the Pats, there is a material chance they end up being the second best team in that division, just because of the question marks over the Jets and the injuries that the Dolphins are dealing with. I wouldn't predict that they're going to be second. I would predict they'd be 4th, but I think that that's well within the range of possibilities. If Christian Gonzalez is a legit CB1 from the get-go, then all of a sudden that defense is kind of frightening, where I think they just have a lot of unsung heroes that you don't really think about. Like Matthew Judon got a lot of press last year because of the sack totals, and he's very solid. But the real guy who made a difference, I think, there was Josh Uche, who, not to be confused with the high-end Japanese restaurant, but Josh Uche, he had a 83 PFF grade last year as an edge rusher and was excellent. And then the other thing is that I'm not giving up on Mac Jones. Mac Jones' rookie year, he was top 10 in the league in luck-adjusted EPA per play. He was excellent. Last year, I mean, you talk to anyone around the league about the Patriots and their situation on offense behind the scene last year and just what a disaster it was with Patricia and Judge. And now they should have at least more competence on that side. And I just think that Mac Jones has the scope to be an above-average quarterback. I was very high on Mac Jones going into last year, and I remember feeling very vindicated after his performance against the Vikings, where he just absolutely lit them up and looked superb, and then felt a little less vindicated when I saw what every other team did to the Vikings defense post that, including Daniel Jones a couple of times. But I think there still is something there with Mac Jones. I wish he had more at receiver, and I wish the offensive line was as strong as it was perhaps a couple of years ago. But I think that that the Pats could very conceivably just be a very solid 9-8, 10-7 type team. All right. Anything else on this game, Drew? Before we
Well, it sounds. I mean, you're renewing my confidence in this one. You're better off taking +4 or the money line at that point.
I think +4. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also I would lean to under as well. And the under has been better. They opened at 46. It's down to 45. But yeah, if I was going to make 2 plays on this game, it would be the Patriots +4 and the under.
I'm going to think about this one some more, and maybe before we get to the weekend, we'll revisit it because I might split stake and add a little money line to this because the Patriots are set up well to protect the lead, and there are questions for me swirling about the run defense for Philadelphia, the spine of that defense, particularly linebacking core, safety core. That's where it's weak. So Ramondre Stevenson getting 20 carries in the second half of this game and putting away like a 17-10 type of win seems not crazy to me. Defense also rostered well to get a little bit of pressure, even though I know that it's going to be tough to put away the Eagles comfortably, considering their offensive line is all universe and they have 2 of the best skill position players on earth and the wideout position. So yeah, I'm going to think about this one a little bit more, but this is one this is definitely going to be on the main screen on Sunday morning. Really, really good matchup.
Yep. Not Ramondre Stevenson carrying out the game for us, Drew. Ezekiel Elliott getting it done for his old team, the Cowboys,
All-time
give him a leg up in the division, which I'll be cheering for. All right. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks, everyone, watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us as a podcast, please don't forget to rate and subscribe. And a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you tomorrow.